Chapter 1. The Fear of Speaking. Hi, I'm Ariel, and today I'm going to talk about something important: how to overcome speaking fear. Have you ever been in a situation where you want to speak English, but when it's your turn, you freeze? Your heart starts racing, your mouth feels dry, and even though you know the words, nothing comes out. Does this sound familiar? This is the fear of speaking, and let me tell you, almost everyone learning English has felt this at some point. You are not alone. It's completely normal to feel nervous about speaking, especially when you're still learning. Maybe you're afraid of making mistakes, or maybe you think others won't understand you. But here's something really important to remember. Everyone makes mistakes. Even people who speak English as their first language make mistakes sometimes, and that's okay. Now here's where the suspense begins. What if I told you there's a way to get past this fear? A way that makes speaking easier and more natural, without all the stress? Yes, it's possible, and it's not as hard as you think. The truth is, speaking is the key to becoming fluent in English. You can read, write, and listen all you want, but unless you practice speaking, it's hard to improve. Speaking helps you use everything you've learned, like words, grammar, and pronunciation, in real situations. It brings everything together. But I know what you might be thinking right now. How can I start speaking if I'm too scared? Don't worry. I've got a plan for you. There are simple and easy techniques that can help you start speaking without feeling so nervous. And guess what? You don't have to be perfect. In fact, the more you practice speaking, the more comfortable and confident you'll become. There's a powerful technique that will help you feel confident when you speak, even if you're scared right now. I'm going to share that secret with you in the next chapter. But first, let's talk about something really important. Why is it so important to speak English? You might wonder, why do I have to speak? Can't I just listen or read to learn English? Think of it this way. If you only listen, it's like learning how to ride a bike by watching videos. Sure, you understand how it works, but you won't actually know how to ride the bike until you get on and start pedaling. Speaking English is like riding that bike. The more you do it, the better you get. And here's something to inspire you. There's a famous quote by Nelson Mandela that says, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Speaking English might feel impossible right now, but once you start, you'll realize it's not as hard as it seems. So, here's what I want you to know. In this podcast, you're going to learn how to speak English with confidence. I'll share techniques that are simple, fun, and easy to use. You don't need to worry about being perfect. You just need to be willing to try. And here's a little hint. There's more coming. In the next chapter, I'm going to reveal the first secret to overcoming the fear of speaking. It's something you can start doing today, and it will help you speak English right away, even if you feel nervous right now. Chapter 2. Breaking the Silence. Here we are in Chapter 2. You're ready to take the first step toward speaking English with confidence. But before we begin, I want to ask you a simple question. What's stopping you from speaking? Is it fear of making mistakes? Is it the worry that others might not understand you? Here's the truth. The only way to get better at speaking is to actually speak. That's right. You can't wait for the fear to disappear first. You have to start now, even if it feels scary. So how do you break the silence? How do you start speaking when the fear is so strong? Let me tell you a secret. You don't have to speak in front of others at first. You can start by speaking to yourself. Yes, you heard that right. One of the best ways to build your confidence is by talking to yourself in English. It might sound strange, but it works. Here's a simple technique you can try today. The mirror technique. Find a mirror, stand in front of it, and pretend you're having a conversation with someone. It could be about anything, your day, your favorite book, or even what you had for breakfast. Look at yourself in the mirror and speak in English. The mirror helps you feel like you're talking to someone else, but you're in a safe space where no one is judging you. This technique helps you practice speaking out loud without the pressure of an audience. You get used to hearing your own voice in English, and over time, you start to feel more comfortable. Let me tell you about a student I had named Julia. Julia was terrified of speaking in class. She would always tell me, "I can't speak English in front of people. What if they laugh at me?" So I told her about the mirror technique. At first, she felt silly doing it, but she gave it a try. Every day, she stood in front of the mirror and talked about her day in English. Slowly, her confidence grew. After a few weeks, she started speaking in class without fear. The mirror technique helped her break the silence. There's a famous quote by Winston Churchill that says, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." This is so true for learning to speak English. It's not about being perfect, it's about having the courage to keep going, even if you make mistakes. But here's the thing. The mirror technique is just the first step. It helps you start speaking, but there's another technique that will take your speaking skills to the next level. And it's something you can do anywhere, anytime. This next technique will make speaking easier and more natural. What is it? You'll find out in the next chapter, where I'll reveal the secret technique that has helped thousands of people become fluent speakers. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. Until then, try the mirror technique. It's a small step, but it's the beginning of a big change. And remember, if you want more tips and practice, you can find stories and podcasts on my website, thestoryspeak.online, to help you improve your English. Chapter 3. The Magic of Repetition. Welcome to Chapter 3. You've already taken a big step by breaking the silence with the mirror technique. Now it's time to reveal another powerful tool that will transform your English speaking skills. Repetition. You might be wondering, why is repetition so important? Well, let me ask you this. How did you learn to ride a bike? Or, how did you memorize the alphabet when you were a child? The answer is simple. You repeated it over and over until it became natural. The same rule applies to speaking English. When you repeat phrases, sentences, or even full conversations, your brain starts to remember them more easily. The words and sounds begin to flow naturally, without you having to think about them. And here's the exciting part. Repetition makes you more fluent, without much effort. Let me tell you about a student I had named Max. Max was a quiet student who rarely spoke in English. He understood most of the words but struggled to put them into sentences. I told Max about the power of repetition. I gave him a simple exercise. Every day, he had to repeat 5 English sentences 5 times each. At first, it felt boring to him, but after a week, Max started to notice something. He could say those sentences quickly and easily. He didn't have to think about them anymore. They just came out naturally. Max continued this practice, repeating more sentences each day, and soon he was speaking with confidence. The magic of repetition had helped him break through the barrier. The more he repeated, the more fluent he became. Repetition builds fluency because it teaches your brain to think in English without translating from your native language. It's like training your muscles. The more you practice, the stronger your speaking muscle becomes. Now, let me introduce you to a technique that combines repetition and listening, shadowing. Shadowing is when you listen to a native English speaker and repeat what they say right after them. You're like their shadow, following their words, rhythm, and pronunciation. Here's how you can start shadowing. Choose a short audio. Pick a simple podcast or story from my website, thestoryspeak.online, or find a YouTube video with clear English. Listen to a sentence. Play one sentence at a time. Focus on how the speaker says it. Repeat after the speaker. As soon as the speaker finishes the sentence, pause the audio and repeat it out loud, just like they said it. Match their rhythm and pronunciation. Try to sound exactly like the speaker, copying their speed and intonation. At first, you might struggle to keep up, but don't worry, that's normal. The more you practice, the easier it gets. Shadowing helps you speak more naturally because you're practicing real-life English. Bruce Lee once said, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." This is the essence of repetition and shadowing. It's not about learning a lot of new words at once. It's about mastering a few key phrases and sentences through practice. The more you repeat, the more powerful your speaking skills become. But wait, there's more. Repetition can sometimes feel boring, right? Well, in the next chapter, I'm going to show you how to make speaking practice fun. Here's a trick to turning repetition into something you look forward to every day. It's going to be exciting, and I promise you won't want to miss it. Until then, try repeating a few sentences today. You can find stories and podcasts on thestoryspeak.online to practice with, and don't forget to try shadowing too. Chapter 4. Turning Practice into Fun. You've made it to Chapter 4, and now it's time to take your speaking practice to the next level. We've talked about repetition and shadowing and how they can improve your fluency. But let's be honest, sometimes practice can feel boring, right? Well, what if I told you that speaking English can actually be fun? Yes, fun. How? By turning your practice into something you enjoy. When learning feels like play, you'll want to keep going. So, let's dive into ways you can make your speaking practice exciting and enjoyable. Here's the first tip. Role-playing. Think about it like this. You're an actor, and you're practicing a scene. You can play the role of a customer ordering food at a restaurant, or maybe you're a traveler asking for directions. By pretending to be in real-life situations, you get to practice English without feeling like it's a chore. Plus, role-playing helps you get comfortable with phrases you'll actually use in conversations. One of my students, Sam, loved superheroes. He didn't like traditional speaking exercises, so I told him to pretend he was a superhero giving an important speech. Suddenly, speaking became exciting for him. He started practicing his English by acting out scenes, and guess what? His fluency improved because he was having fun while speaking. You can try this too. Pick a situation you might encounter in real life. Ordering at a cafe, introducing yourself to new friends, or talking about your hobbies. Practice these scenes with a friend, or even by yourself. You'll see how much more confident you feel when speaking in actual conversations. Here's another trick. Record yourself. I know this might sound scary at first, but it's an amazing way to track your progress. Pick a topic, record yourself speaking for 1 or 2 minutes, and then listen to the recording. You'll hear what you're doing well and what you need to work on. It's like being your own teacher. And guess what? You don't have to sound perfect. Remember, perfection is not the key. Progress is. There's a great quote by Theodore Roosevelt that says, "Do what you can with what you have where you are." This means you don't need to wait until you're ready to start practicing. Just do it now, and every time you practice, you'll get a little bit better. Now, let's talk about making practice even more fun. Speaking games. Have you ever heard of 20 questions? It's a simple game where one person thinks of an object and the other person asks up to 20 questions to figure out what it is. It's a great way to practice asking and answering questions in English. You can also try charades, where you act out a word or phrase, and your partner has to guess what it is. Games like these help you think in English and react quickly, just like in real conversations. Here's another fun activity: talking about what you love. What's your favorite book, movie, or hobby? Start by talking about the things you're passionate about. When you talk about things you enjoy, it's easier to find the words, and you'll sound more natural. You could even try this while shadowing a podcast or story from thestoryspeak.online. Winston Churchill once said, "The more you speak, the easier it becomes." The key to mastering English is to speak, and the best way to keep speaking is to make it something you love doing. By adding role-playing, games, and your own interests to your practice, you'll never feel bored. Instead, speaking English will become a part of your daily life, something you look forward to. But what if you don't have anyone to practice with? What if you're practicing alone? Don't worry, the answer is coming in the next chapter. There's a way to improve your speaking skills, even if you don't have a partner to talk to. You'll learn how to become your own best speaking partner. Chapter 5. Finding your speaking partner. Welcome to Chapter 5, where we dive into one of the biggest challenges people face when learning to speak English: finding a speaking partner. You've learned some great techniques so far, but you might be wondering, what if I don't have anyone to practice with? Don't worry. The good news is you don't always need a partner to improve your speaking skills. You can still become fluent by practicing on your own, and I'm going to show you how. First, let me introduce you to an easy but powerful technique called self-talk. It's exactly what it sounds like, talking to yourself in English. This might feel a little strange at first, but trust me, it's an effective way to practice speaking. You can do it anywhere, while walking, cooking, or even before going to bed. Just think of a topic and start talking. Describe your day, talk about your plans, or share your thoughts out loud. One of my students, Anna, didn't have any friends who spoke English, so she felt stuck. I told her to try self-talk. At first, she felt silly, but after a few weeks, she noticed a huge difference. She became more confident and started speaking without hesitation. The best part? She didn't need anyone else to practice with, just herself. Here's how you can try self-talk. Pick a simple topic. Start with something easy, like describing your day or your favorite food. Talk out loud. Speak slowly and clearly. Don't worry if you make mistakes. This is your private practice. Challenge yourself. After you feel comfortable, try talking about more difficult topics, like your dreams or opinions on a news story. Here's something interesting. When you practice self-talk, you're training your brain to think in English. This means that when you do speak with others, you'll be able to respond more quickly, without having to translate from your native language. It's a simple technique, but it works wonders. Next, let's talk about another great way to practice speaking without needing a partner. Recording yourself. Just like we mentioned in Chapter 4, recording your voice and listening back helps you spot areas where you need improvement. But here's an extra tip. After you record yourself, try listening to the audio and shadowing your own voice. This will help you sound more natural and confident. One of my favorite quotes comes from Plato, who said, "The first and best victory is to conquer yourself." This means that sometimes you are your own best teacher. By talking to yourself and recording your voice, you take control of your own learning journey. Now, let's say you want more variety in your speaking practice. You don't have a human partner, but you do have technology. There are plenty of apps and websites where you can practice speaking with AI or voice recognition tools. These tools allow you to have conversations, and they give you instant feedback on your pronunciation. It's like having a conversation partner who is always available. Don't forget about shadowing, which we talked about in Chapter 3. Shadowing doesn't need a live partner either. All you need is a podcast, audiobook, or video to follow. You can find stories and podcasts on my website, thestoryspeak.online, which are perfect for practicing shadowing. You'll listen to a speaker and repeat what they say, copying their rhythm, tone, and pronunciation. It's almost like you're having a real conversation with the speaker, even if they aren't there. Here's one more technique to try. Watch videos with subtitles. Start by watching short videos in English with subtitles. Read along while the speaker talks, and then pause the video and try to say the same sentence. This gives you the chance to practice speaking in the context of real conversations. By combining these methods, self-talk, recording yourself, using technology, and shadowing, you'll see big improvements in your speaking, even if you're practicing on your own. But don't think we're done yet. There's still one final secret to mastering English speaking. It's the most important key, and if you follow it, your speaking skills will improve faster than ever. In the next and final chapter, we'll uncover the real secret to becoming fluent in English. It's something you can start doing today, and it's easier than you think. Chapter 6. Speaking every day is the real secret. Here we are in the final chapter. You've learned about self-talk, shadowing, using technology, and recording yourself. But now, it's time to reveal the ultimate secret to mastering English speaking. Are you ready? It's simple, but powerful. Consistency is the key. You don't need to speak for hours every day to improve. Even just 10 minutes a day can create huge changes over time. The secret is to practice speaking English every single day, no matter how small the effort seems. Consistency beats perfection every time. Let me tell you about a student named Sarah. Sarah wanted to become fluent in English, but she felt overwhelmed. She thought she needed to study for hours every day, but her busy schedule made that impossible. I told her, "You don't need hours. Start with just 10 minutes of speaking every day." At first, she didn't believe that such a small amount of time could make a difference, but she gave it a try. Sarah practiced for just 10 minutes each day. Some days she used the mirror technique. Other days she shadowed podcasts from the storyspeak.online. Slowly, Sarah noticed a change. Her words started coming more easily, her confidence grew, and speaking English felt more natural. After a few months, Sarah was able to hold conversations with native speakers, all because of those small, consistent daily efforts. Here's why consistency is so powerful. It builds a habit. When you speak English every day, even for a few minutes, it becomes a part of your routine. Your brain gets used to thinking and speaking in English regularly, and this makes fluency easier to achieve. Think of it like watering a plant. If you give it a little water every day, the plant will grow strong over time. But if you only water it once a week, it might not survive. Your English speaking skills are like that plant. The more often you practice, the faster and stronger they'll grow. One of the best parts about consistency is that you don't have to be perfect. Some days will be harder than others. You might make mistakes, and that's okay. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to keep going, even when it feels difficult. Success is the sum of small efforts, repeated day in and day out, as the writer Robert Collier once said. Here's how you can build a consistent speaking habit. Set a time each day. It could be in the morning, during lunch, or right before bed. Choose a time that works for you and stick to it. Start small. Don't overwhelm yourself. Even 5 to 10 minutes a day is enough to see progress. Mix it up. Use the techniques you've learned: self-talk, shadowing, mirror practice, or role-playing. Variety keeps things interesting. Track your progress. Keep a journal of what you practice each day. You'll be surprised by how much progress you've made after a few weeks. Tracking your progress will also motivate you to keep going. Each small step counts toward your bigger goal of becoming a fluent English speaker. Let me share another quote by Benjamin Franklin. Energy and persistence conquer all things. This reminds us that it's not just about the effort we put in on one day, it's about the energy we bring every day, little by little, that leads to success. Persistence is the real magic behind mastering any skill, especially speaking English. But here's something else to remember. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. Some days you might feel tired or busy, and that's okay. Even if you can only practice for 5 minutes, do it. The important thing is that you show up, even on those tough days. The more you practice, the easier it becomes, and before you know it, speaking English will feel natural. Now, you might be thinking, but what if I don't see progress right away? This is where patience comes in. Consistency plus patience equals success. You won't see changes overnight, but after weeks or months of daily practice, you'll notice that words come to you faster, your confidence grows, and speaking becomes easier. There's one more important thing to keep in mind. Enjoy the process. Don't think of speaking English as a chore. Make it fun. Talk about things you love. Practice role-playing situations you find interesting. or use stories and podcasts from thestoryspeak.online to engage in conversations that excite you. When you enjoy the process, it won't feel like hard work. It'll feel like an adventure. Now that we've reached the end of this podcast, you have all the tools you need. Mirror technique to build confidence. Repetition and shadowing to master fluency. Self-talk and recording to practice on your own. Consistency to bring it all together. With these techniques, you can transform your English speaking skills one day at a time. Remember, fluency is not a race, it's a journey. Every small step you take brings you closer to your goal. So, what's next? Start speaking. Whether you're practicing in front of a mirror, repeating phrases from a podcast, or talking to yourself while walking down the street, the key is to just keep speaking. The more you speak, the more natural it becomes. You have the power to become fluent. You just need to start. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, as the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu once said. Today is your day to take that step. And remember, you're never alone on this journey. You can always find more stories, podcasts, and speaking resources on thestoryspeak.online to help you along the way. Thank you for joining me on this podcast. Now, it's time for you to take what you've learned and start speaking your way to success. Hope you have enjoyed the reading.